So today, the International Court of Justice heard South Africa's genocide case against Israel over Gaza's war, and there were many details of incidents that amount to genocide or acts of genocide, according to the case, in which U.S. provided weapons were used. Is the Pentagon concerned about any implications from, or potential implications from this case?
Yeah, thanks, Fadi. So I don't have any comment to provide in terms of South Africa and its particular actions as it relates to the International Criminal Court. We've been very clear from the beginning of this conflict that we do care about innocent civilian lives, both Israeli and Palestinian, and that we will continue to consult with our Israeli partners and urge them to take all necessary measures to protect civilians, also taking into account humanitarian assistance. And again, I know I've said this many times, but any loss of civilian life is tragic, and of course, it's not something that we want. We also recognize the difficult situation that Israel finds itself in terms of defending its country and ensuring that the kinds of attacks that happened on October 7th don't happen again. So we are going to continue to work very closely with State Department and the interagency and our partners in Israel to ensure that, number one, they have the ability to defend themselves, but number two, that we continue to do everything that we can to urge them and expect them to safeguard civilians and also ensure that humanitarian assistance can get into Gaza. And then more long-term, of course, the policy of the U.S. government is to work toward a two-state solution where Israel and the Palestinians can live, coexist in that region in peace. But again, I'll just leave it there.
I mean, we've heard these comments before, but there's a big question about the effectiveness of.
Going back to the president's reactions, Obama would have probably nuked Yemen already. What's surprising there? Wait, what? No, you're not. No, these guys are. I'm sorry. I think Biden has been more progressive than Barack Obama on many issues, except for this one. Okay, but if we're being honest, same with Obama. Same with Hillary Clinton. These are guys who rely on the specialists, the ideology coming from the State Department directly. Okay? I would go so far as to say the real reason why there's major division here at the top levels of American, the executive office, is due to the ideological divisions that Joe Biden has with and who he's listening to and who he chooses to amplify within the State Department. Like, I don't think that, although Barack Obama did, of course, drone strike Yemen quite frequently, I think that overall, this is unique for the Democratic Party. The only person who would be worse than Joe Biden on this issue is Donald Trump. Beyond that, I cannot think of another Democrat that would be worse than Joe Biden here. For not the moral reasons. Remember, these guys are immoral monsters, okay? They're war criminals. Please, make no mistake. These guys are monsters. They're war criminals. However, they still have a realpolitik attitude that they look at the situation in a rational manner. Okay? The idea that as far looking back at like prior administrations, any of the other Democratic administrations would be worse than Joe Biden on this issue alone. Everything else, Joe Biden is like relatively progressive, more progressive than they are, even though that doesn't mean much currently. We're talking about foreign policy. I do personally believe that the practical thing that I'm mentioning here, the pragmatic approach to the matter, makes it so that I think Joe Biden is a standalone individual and his administration is different than other Democratic administrations. And also, having said that, I would even go so far as to say prior Republican administration, with the exception of George W. Bush, of course, I think that they would also probably not engage in this militant of a fashion and put themselves out there in support of Israel. That's my approach to it. That's what I believe. And I believe that in all sincerity. I believe that as much as I believe that I forgot to run the top of the hour ad break at 1 p.m. and I'm running it 25 minutes into the hour and telling you that if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Feel like you never want to see the judges in the ICJ doing this while you testify? Oh, God. Anyway, you can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here is the 3-minute ad break now. They called for a 10-minute coffee break after that scene showed. Yeah, I assume this is from I assume this is from like did they show the video? Did they show the Hamas video or something? I did see the lawyer mess up his papers, yes. No, it was when one of the lawyers fucked up his papers and couldn't make a coherent argument. Oh. Would a verdict of genocide change anything or cause something to be implemented? There is very little enforcement mechanisms here. If Israel doesn't want to listen to it, they don't have to. The difference, however, is that a genocide conviction comes with an injunction and it applies additional pressure to the United States of America. It is all about taking away America's like influence. Okay? It's all about chipping away America's influence and separating the United States and other Western allies from Israel. That's the goal here. The goal is to incrementally make it as politically unfeasible as possible to unconditionally offer support to Israel as it engages in ethnic cleansing, as it maintains its apartheid regime. That's the goal. That is the slated goal. Because there's no real hard power counter to this. I mean, look at Yemen. They got nothing. What are you going to do? Go against America? You can't do anything. They'll wipe you out. So, yeah. The worst part about this is that if the ICJ rules in favor of Israel, then they get the permission to go buck wild, in my opinion. Then it's like really, really devastating.
Whatever you're doing with your Israeli allies. Today, the spokesperson for the United Nations Secretary General said Israel impeded the delivery of 18 shipments out of 21 to North Gaza since the beginning of the year, and it's basically crippling organizations, humanitarian organizations, to do their work in that area. The death toll continues to grow. Hospitals are being targeted. UN workers, journalists, more than 110 have been killed. Schools, civilian infrastructure. So what is it really that you're referring to in terms of Israel's right to defend itself? Are you in support of such actions?
Again, Fadi, no one's questioning the fact that it's a tragic situation across.
Is this how apartheid in South Africa was brought down? Apartheid in South Africa was brought down through direct and indirect pressure, yes. Economic pressure being the most important one. How did that pressure apply? Because there were plenty of people protesting against the apartheid regime in the Western world. Boycotts, divestments, and sanctions was incredibly successful in getting the American Congress and in the Western world, like all of the other parliaments and all of the other political systems to act against South Africa. It made it so that South Africa was a pariah, basically. And ultimately, what ended up happening was, like, even the South Africans themselves, the white population of South Africa, finally came to that same reasonable assessment that the apartheid could not continue if they wanted to maintain economic ties with the rest of the world. And Israel, at the time, was South Africa's ally. What Israel saw from that BDS measure was how effective it was in combating an apartheid regime. So, for the next 30 years, Israel fought tooth and nail to stop any kind of mention that Israel is an apartheid state, even though it was at the time and still is to this day, of course. And also stop dead in its tracks any kind of BDS measure happening globally. Okay? It's basic knowledge. People are just derailing. No, my friend, I'm not going to stop someone who's asking a very serious and normal question about how this worked in South Africa. That's really it's one of my duties is to explain things such as this. It's like pretty basic concepts
across the board for multiple reasons. Again, Israel is a sovereign country that's going to make sovereign decisions about how best to defend themselves. What we've committed to is Israel's inherent right to self-defense, but we've also made it very clear that we expect them to conduct any operations in accordance with the law of armed conflict and also take into account the importance of ensuring that humanitarian aid and assistance can get into Gaza. I recognize that this is an incredibly complex situation and there are no simple solutions.
Yeah, it's not an incredibly complex situation, in my opinion. It's just not at all. Anyway, it's just. But this defense from the United States of America is really interesting as well. It's just like, it's like pretty obvious that as they're. I mean, it's pretty crazy that they're just like giving the go ahead, and so is Canada. And so is, I guess, Germany. And they're doing everything they can to reinforce Western dominance here. And it's a really interesting situation because the countries that are involved, or the country that's involved here, is Israel. It's a whole ass separate nation. But as I've said time and time again, Israel is America's military base. What America says goes. Okay? Here is a funny moment from the court, by the way.
This is particularly difficult in such an egregious matter as an allegation of genocide. Were understood by the... Excuse me. Right, I've lost a page.
I've lost a page. Must have been the wind. Oh, how embarrassing. Oh. I hope I was able to make this distinction between the moral argument, which of course does not favor Israel's actions at all, but also even the practical argument a practical argument and a pragmatic approach to why America needs to separate itself from Israel and why the Western world needs to separate itself from Israel, causing Israel to stop doing its genocidal actions instantaneously. So, like, the moral argument and the pragmatic argument work side by side, certainly. But the thing is, there is a lot of distaste for endless war amongst the civilians everywhere, okay? Amongst the civilian population everywhere. To run this line that like Israel has a right to do small. Are you good? Yeah. Okay. The idea that you are going to continue supporting Israel, even though it is cartoonishly villainous in the way that it is conducting itself, in the way that it is like engaging in acts of ethnic cleansing, is going to be a position that is not tenable in the Western world when younger demographics see the situation at hand and have a very different opinion than those who grew up with unconditional support to Israel. That's simply what I'm trying to say here. It shows the rest of the world, that America doesn't have the same juice, right? And the sauce. And it makes it a less favorable position to agree with unconditionally. There's always a bandwidth for how much genuine interest you have for engaging in even a proxy war, right? There's a time limit to how much direct war you can engage in. America has like a 20-year, as we've seen, a 20-year time frame on most of its like international conflicts, right? But as far as like proxy wars goes, there's a time frame. Like you can't do it forever. You can't do it permanently. There will always come a time and place where either cooler heads will prevail or the State Department will try a different approach. Like Tibet is a great example of this, where the CIA completely dropped Tibet. Completely. Like they put a little bit of money into it. They gave money to the Dalai Lama. And then after that, they were like, all right, no, never mind. In the Nixon administration, they realized like, all right, we're going to normalize relations with China. We're going to drop our prior approach, saying that Taiwan is the real China, the Republic of China is the real China, and the PRC is the fake China. They changed that. They changed that dynamic, and as a consequence, they basically said we're shuttering the Tibet division. Okay, they did that. That was deliberately done because they were like, we don't want to do it. We don't want to fucking consistently give money to this cause. Okay? The same goes for defending Israel. The same happened with Ukraine. Part of the reason why we're currently talking about Ukraine at all right now is for this specific reason. America does not have the same appetite for continuing the Ukrainian defense because now we got a different problem to worry about. Think about that. Here. But we're surely far more interwoven in these conflicts than Tibet, etc. No, absolutely. I mean, a better analog would be Taiwan, obviously, and not Tibet. I was just simply using Tibet as an example of like when America decides to no longer play with a toy that it has. Does that make sense? Because like there are many different reasons why America will drop a proxy. Kurds are a great example of this. Americans will literally go in, arm the Kurds, train them, and then sick the Turkish military on the Kurds immediately. They're like, all right, we're done. We used you guys up, and now it's time for Turkey to come in and blow all of your positions up. They do that every time, right? The reason for why they do that is because the allegiance with Turkey is more important to them. Turkey's a NATO ally. Turkey has nuclear bases, American military bases that have nukes in them. So, of course, from the American position, the allegiance with Turkey is far more important than the allegiance with Kurdish militias. And as long as Kurds are stateless and they have militia forces, America can consistently use them as a weapon against whoever they want to as a destabilizing force in the region, right? So that's how this works. Ukraine, on the other hand, is a full nation state, obviously. And it's a full nation state that is fighting against another nation state that is a foreign adversary. So, like I'm trying to explain, there is a limit to how long America will always utilize you and continue helping facilitate like a proxy battle.
Prepared to consider not only the question of the plausibility of rights,
This happened again? Jesus Christ.
Someone has shuffled my papers.
He says, someone has shuffled my papers. Seems to me like Hamas was in the room, shuffling my papers. I do declare Hamas to be the responsible party in shuffling of thy papers, sir.
The question of the possible breach of such rights.
America likes proxy wars until accountability joins the chat. No, not even. It's not even accountability. No. I've said this before. Depending on what we're looking at, depending on what the conflict is, America will work with anyone and everyone. Please understand this. America will work with communists like it does in Rojava. Okay? It doesn't matter what your ideological background is. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, and then sometimes the enemy of my enemy that is my friend will become my enemy down the line. It doesn't matter. What matters is the American bottom line. What matters is the military-industrial complex. What matters is American corporations being able to consistently extract natural resources. American corporations being able to consistently take advantage of a labor pool that is a permanent underclass, whether it be in Latin America, whether it be in Africa, no matter where it is. America cares about one thing and one thing only. At least European social democracies, to a certain degree, care about like maintaining a base level of material equality for their citizens. America doesn't even do that. America only cares about making sure that all of the bounties of imperialism go directly to the tippy top, and maybe a little bit of the crumb will fall down to the labor aristocracy. But overall, America cares about one thing and one thing only: corporate profits, the bottom line. That's it. They will align with anyone and everyone at the behest of that interest. That's all they care about. That is all they will pursue. That's it. I think that, albeit while reductive, I think it's a pretty good assessment to say America is like 4 companies in a trench coat. Okay, 4 corporations in a trench coat.